Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Ubuntu Engineering Live update. With me today, I've got Ali and Will Cook, who has rejoined Canonical recently to fill the position of the desktop team manager. If you've not watched one of these videos before, we do it every 2 weeks on Wednesday at the same time. And the purpose of this is just to give the community a regular update on the progress of what Canonical's been working on for this release. So we'll all give an update for our different sides, and then we'll take questions in IRC. If you go to ubuntuonair.com, you'll see the video embedded, and right below it will be an embedded IRC chat where you can ask us your questions. Or if you have your own IRC client, you can just join #ubuntu-on-air on Freenode, and you can ask them there. You can ask questions at any time. If you use the word question in all caps at the start of your question, it'll turn bright yellow on my screen, and that way I don't miss it. It makes it much easier for me. And we'll get to those questions in the order they come in after we've given our updates. So you can ask them anytime you want. To start things off, I'm going to hand it over to Ali, who's going to give us some updates on what's been going on with the, I guess, desktop side and the new Unity 8 side of things.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Sorry. So lots of things are happening. I'm representing quite a lot of teams. So let's see. I'm going to start with scopes. I think two really cool things have happened that are at least on the Devil proposed images now. First is departments are there for installed apps. So in the beginning we had some issues with, people had this whole list of apps installed and they were maybe not even sorted or didn't make sense how they appeared. And now we put some categorization on top of that, which we call or refer to as departments. And so if you go to the app scope, you'll see that, and I think that's really cool to actually get a good overview and categorization of what's installed on your phone. And then Thomas Strahl, who's actually leading the scopes team, also told me that they've put some work in figuring out why scopes are starting so slow, and supposedly we're now about half a second faster for the startup if you have an aggregator scope. There's a couple of cascading effects that are happening, and the team looked at it, did some profiling, and we were cutting it down by about half a second to a second. So that's pretty cool. Other things that are in the silo is, for example, a custom header for a local scope, and that's being fixed and will be hitting the Devil proposed and the release images soon. Then I think my notes say payments. That's also a good topic to talk about. So as a commercial viable phone, having the ability to process payments for app purchases, for example, is just a must-have criteria. And Thomas was busy working with other teams in getting this implemented. We've went through a last set of design reviews and are just about to fix issues that were identified there. And so that's one of the big tasks that the team is working on, and we hope to get close to finishing that by the end of this week. Payments is a very touchy topic, specifically when it comes to security, because credit card information is involved, other identity information is involved. And so in the underpinnings that in the infrastructure that also involves me and other parts of the shell and the whole system, we have what we call trust sessions, which is essentially a system or capability for authorized components to bring up a screen and say, do you want to do this trusted transaction? And so payments as a workflow will be there by the end of the week, and then integrating that into this trust session workflow will happen shortly after. And this is the last big step that's really missing on that commercial aspect of the phone in terms of app purchases. Just checking if there are questions. So then moving on to indicators and settings. There's not a lot of work that has happened there, a couple of bug fixes. We're still expecting one more notable item to land, which is like a low power notification. So if your phone is about to run out of battery, then a pop-up will tell you about it and you can take actions. We expect this end of this week, early next week. Just see, Nick90 had a question about payments. I don't think we're targeting. So the question is, does payments also include support for in-app purchases? I don't think this is subject for this release, but I would have to check with Martin for sure. And then Philippe also had a question about how to publish an app on Launchpad. So I think what you're really asking is how to get an app onto the Ubuntu phone into the Click store. Might correct me, but I think developer.ubuntu.com is a good entry point to get all the information and documentation for that.
Yeah, there's a publishing section there that'll should have all the information you need to publish an app, or now also a scope into the store. Mm-hmm. If you're asking specifically about getting a project on Launchpad, you can go to launchpad.net, and there's all kinds of links on that front page about how to use it and how to set up projects. But if you're talking about apps or scopes or anything having to do with the new store, then yeah, developer.ubuntu.com is the place to go.
Okay. So if you have more questions, feel free to interrupt us anytime. I'm moving on to a different section. Different team. Lucy and his team are working on what we call push notifications. So that's the ability of an app to send notifications to the phone through an application server. Canonical or Ubuntu is providing the infrastructure to do that, where we have a gateway essentially where your application server can push notifications to this gateway and then to the recipients, to the users of the phone. So that's a big feature. It's a big important feature for app developers. And the team just released the Ubuntu push client 0.49 that is close to feature complete. So a notification can have an action. So it's actionable. You can click on it and it'll bring up the application that the notification was for. There's an integration into the messaging menu, so you won't. Right now we have push notifications on the phone for system updates, and they haven't been persistent so far. So if you lagged out and were just checking your phone at the time when the notification came in, you were lucky. But 10 minutes after the notification was gone, now the notification in the 0.49 release is actually integrated into the messaging menu, so you'll get a notification there, a persistent notification even. So that was a major milestone. Otherwise, the whole feature wouldn't make a lot of sense. But also there's emblems on the launcher, so if the application that the notification was for is active, or is tagged to the launcher, it'll actually show a little bubble, with the amount of or the number of notifications that's there for the particular application. Around next week, we hope to release a sample app and a sample app server. It's a Choo-Choo template essentially to help deploy a small server that would could be used as the base for your application server, and also a click app locally on the phone that would explain how to make use of push notifications. This is part of a larger effort to actually integrate push notifications into the SDK.
And you said Lucio was working on this?
That's Lucio's team, correct.
Okay, so I guess I need to get with him and make sure that I've got API documentation for this on the developer portal.
Yeah, that's part of the plan, is part of the SDK effort to have that documentation up and out. Now, ironically, we've been talking a lot about push notifications. The next topic on my notes is actually about the poll daemon. So if you're an app developer and want to leverage that feature, that's great, and it will be there for you to use it. But for larger deployments, say like Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, we're working with them in actually having the app author integrate the service. But for cases where it won't be there, we won't be there for RTM. We have come up with what we call the poll daemon. It's a workaround for services that Canonical chooses that are critical to have push notifications for. And so to ease the transition and the integration path. So there's a few hand-selected exceptions that we're granting that can actually leverage the poll daemon. And so we're currently working on having that poll daemon for Facebook, Twitter, and Gmail. And we'll hope to see a first example of that on the Devil proposed images by next week as well. So I'm just checking if there are any questions on that.
There was a question that wasn't exactly related from Mark Kortbass, asking when we can expect an announcement of a phone from BQ or Meizu. So if you've been following along, we have RTM, our release to manufacturing, coming up at the end of August. So that will be when we hand them over a working image that they can start integrating with their actual devices. So sometime after that is when they'll know when they're going to release those actual handsets with Ubuntu on it. It shouldn't be too much longer after that, but it's certainly not going to be before then. And unfortunately, that's the best answer I can give you right now, because it's really all going to depend on how long it takes them to be happy with the stability and the performance of the image on their device, and how much work still needs to be done to get that to that level.
Okay. So, last on my list, second last actually, is an update from the Unity 8 and the Mir team. There's been a lot of smaller technical details going into Mir, which just landed Mir 0.5. I think there was a huge portion of what Kevin says is the Unity system compositor refactor, and if I'm not mistaken, that it was sort of laying the foundation for another major feature or technical component that they're delivering, which we refer to as the Qt compositor. So Mir will be using the Qt compositor / scene graph, which will bring us a couple of advantages in handling scenes and how they're laid out. The team did some measurements recently about resource efficiency and performance, and I think we'll talk about that in a separate blog post or so. But the numbers look good, so that the effort that the team did there was really good. Doing things with the Qt compositor will allow us to do smoother transitions, better animations, and those eye candy things on the shell. The other big feature for Unity 8 that's really so close of landing is the locking greeter. So right now, you can still circumvent any locking on the phone, and we're about to actually put real locking capabilities in there. So that's another exciting feature for me, but also a really important feature from a security perspective. Let's see. I think that's about it from Unity 8 and Mir. There's a lot of things going on, but they're finessing here and finessing there, so that's not worth mentioning separately.
So you've got a question from Nikalesh. When can we expect SDK APIs regarding things like quick list items on the launcher or emblems on the launcher like you have on the desktop right now?
That's a good question. I would need to check with the team what the plan there is and the status first and foremost. So let me find out, and I'll come back.
I know, Nicholas, for some of those, like the launcher icon emblem, the counter, and the progress bar, some of those really don't make sense to have right now because the app lifecycle management on the phone prevents apps from running in the background. So they won't be able to update those when they don't have focus. And when they do have focus, there's really much less purpose in actually updating them. So a lot of that's going to depend on how app lifecycle management works on the desktop, how we're going to expose those. All right. I had a couple questions for you, actually, Ollie. You started off asking or telling us about the new departments capabilities in the Dash. Is that something that's available to scope authors? Can we define our own departments?
I'm not sure how the categorization happens. There was a discussion to what extent the app or scope author can freely choose. On the one hand side, because we want to give them the freedom of choosing that very liberally. But on the other hand, we also have to sort of maintain that list to something that's manageable. And so I'm not quite sure what the conclusion there is. I would have to check with Thomas, in all honesty.
Okay. And then you also talked about the new payments that are coming to the Dash. If I'm writing my own scope to access content for a separate store, would I be able to use that same API to allow people to purchase content from my store?
Writing a scope for a separate store. So are you thinking of a different payment processor? Is that what you're trying to do?
Or using the same payment processor that Canonical already uses and then just sending me money like we would have if I was selling an app in the store?
I don't think that's on the plans. I think for RTM we're going with a fixed set of payment processors and just that one workflow. But as you see, I'm not quite certain.
Okay.
I'd have to also check. Well, Thomas Strill and Martin Albisetti are behind that process and those details. Feel free to check with them or ping me and I can forward those questions.
All right. Sounds good. If anyone else has any other questions, go ahead and put them in IRC. Please don't wait until the end of this to get your questions in. Too often people wait till the end, we get flooded with questions, and we don't have time to answer them all. So get them in early as soon as you think of them. All right, so we will move on now to Will Cook, who worked for Canonical for quite some time and then left and is now back again in a new role. And he's going to give us an update, even though he's just been back for, what, a week? 2 weeks?
2 days.
2 days, wow.
Yeah,
already got an update for us.
Yeah, so go easy on me. If I don't have answers to questions, I'll do my best to find out for you. So a quick update on what we've been doing on the desktop then in the last couple of weeks. Improving LibreOffice has been one of the core things we've been working on. We've re-enabled a lot of tests for 4.3, so we've got much better visibility on the quality of LibreOffice 4.3 now. We're getting ready to SRU in LibreOffice 4.262 into 14.04, so that should be going in the next few days, I expect. We've just sponsored XDG utils into Utopic, so whatever that does, I'm sure it's great. I'll improve my knowledge there. We've just started work on GStreamer 1.4. That's something I do know a bit more about. That should be good news for Utopic and also for the phone, I expect. Chromium 35 has just gone into Utopic. That went in maybe yesterday. And 36 is very, very closely following it. That should go in the next week or so. So there's quite a few bug fixes in those two versions. So that should be good for everybody. We are working on a fix for the printer driver download hang. If you initiate a driver download outside of dbus, I think, then sometimes the driver download hangs. So we're going to fix that. That would be good. Our Chilin team have been working on some new features for the Sogu input method. So if you're a user of Chilin, that's good news for you guys. And generally, lots and lots of bug fixes have been going on for things like system settings, the lock screen, the Bluetooth panel. That's sort of the most amount of work we've been doing recently is bug fixes. So that's that. Interesting news. We've got people at Guardec next week. 3 or 4 people going there. We've got people at the LibreOffice conference, and Till will be hosting. He's a main player in the Open Printing Conference, all of which I believe you can attend remotely. So if you can't get to those in person, then do check out the feeds. And that's it.
All right. What is XDG utils?
Google's. I don't know, I'm afraid. I will find out. It's a graphics thing, isn't it? XDG. That's one. I'm none the wiser. You know what? I'll go away and I'll find out.
Okay. Nicholas is asking, Ollie, are there any exciting new features you're expecting to land on the phone before RTM?
Oh yeah, we still have a long list of exciting features that are coming. Let me just pull that up. Let me see. What's a good view to look at that? So just for this week, as I said, Qt Compositor is one of the things that I'm excited about. Capability of doing an emergency call is something we're expecting here. That's from a different team that hasn't been covered in today's call. A feature on the dash, which is called Dash Overview, is coming, and that'll help us facilitate favoriting and ordering of scopes and apps. So that's cool, in my opinion. There's more work going on regarding dual SIM support that we were thinking of putting in. Let's see, the transfer indicator has made its way to at least double proposed. So you should have, if you're in double proposed, have the up and download arrow indicator to show any progress on content that you're downloading. So there's, we're tracking, I don't know, close to 300 individual items or features for RTM, and we still have some in the queue to actually deliver in the next couple of weeks. So I hope that answered your question.
I'll go ahead and throw mine in there too, since he's asking. I really like the way the Content Hub is starting to bring things together, and I'm looking forward to the rest of that being finished. Being able to use that to share links and text as well as files and images. I'm also looking forward to shell rotation, which I think is still on the list of things to get done for RTM. It's been something I've been...
I'm not so sure about shell rotation. I think that
it may be shortly after. I don't remember if it made the RTM cut or not. But I do know there's designs for it now.
Right. So there's designs, and we are having it in shortly after RTM for the regular Ubuntu images, not the ones that are going to the customer. And then we for sure will have it for the official 14.10 Ubuntu Touch image.
All right. If anyone has any other questions for Ollie or Will, go ahead and ask them. I've got a couple of updates. Usually I have Alan Pope on here, who gives a very long, detailed update on the status of the Ubuntu core apps, because he's been the one who's been running that project. Unfortunately, he's off today, and I don't know nearly as much as he does about them, so I'm just going to talk about a couple of things that I do know that I'm really excited about. The first of which is the Clock Reboot, which is a new set of designs for the Clock app, and a new set of functionality too, including a nighttime dock mode where it just acts as like a desktop clock. That work is already starting to land in the store, Nikolash, who is Nick90 right there in the IRC channel, is the main developer for this. So if you have any questions about it or you want to contribute to it, you know where to find him. But it's starting to look really nice. And the other thing that I'm really excited about that I just found yesterday is that the calendar app now has multiple calendar management. So I've got my work Google account and my personal Google account both added on my phone under online accounts, and now I can toggle those calendars on and off from within the calendar app itself, which is really nice to have. I can also save meetings into whichever one of those that I want to save them into. So that's all I really know about the Core App's progress, other than just a bunch of bug fixing that they're working on and finishing off their set of features for RTM. A couple of announcements on the community side of things. If you are watching yesterday's Ubuntu community team Q&A, you would have heard that we have a new team manager. That is David Planella, who's been with us for about the start of the community team. He's taken over for Jono in terms of running the team and reporting to the higher-ups and everything. We've also announced the next Ubuntu Online Summit. We're trying to get some feedback from people on that, what they want to see changed, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. So I've started a discourse thread for people to leave feedback on there. If you have any ideas for us, feel free to go and post a reply to that, and we'll start a discussion around it. We haven't picked dates yet. Daniel Holbach announced a couple of dates a week or so ago, but then we found out that they conflict with the OpenStack Developer Summit. So we're going to move those probably back a week, so middle of November. That hasn't been finalized yet, but we still want to get feedback on the format and the content that we have on there. And that's all the updates I have right now from the community team. And I don't see any more questions in, so I guess we'll wrap this meeting up early. We will be back again in 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll have more people here. Between sprints and holidays, we're short on the usual cast of characters that we have. So in 2 weeks we should have more and some really good updates for you. You can follow the Ubuntu On Air account on YouTube/Ubuntu On Air or on Twitter/Ubuntu On Air. To get updates on upcoming broadcasts. We do quite a few of these under different groups. And that's it. We will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Ollie, and thank you, Will, and welcome back, Will.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.